Hey, what's going on, guys? Lang in here, and this is going to be my Dune review. And honestly, I'm very excited to even talk about this. I'm going to be all over the place in my review, just letting you guys know. But I do want to get into the things I really liked. I have one questionable thing going on in the storyline, and then I had some little few nitpicks, but nothing too crazy to sway my opinions otherwise or things like that above the line. But first thing I do want to say is that I'm a huge fan of the books. I'm not going to lie about that right now. I do love the books. I've read most of them right now. I'm still trying to finish up. I'm about to start Hedricks of Dune now. I do have one more after this Chapter House, but I'm still debating if I want to go into the other books. But anyway, I want to talk about the casting in here, man. It was top notch. It was amazing, honestly. I'm actually very excited that he even casted some of these people, like Timothy Chalamnet. I don't have to say his name, but he was great from Paul. I heard a lot of complaints about Paul in this movie, and honestly, it wasn't too bad. I don't know what people really complain about, saying he's very emotionless, I guess you could say is the word. And I really didn't have any complaints from him. I mean, he's a great actor anyway. I remember seeing him in Hostiles a few years ago. But I gotta say, the cast was honestly amazing. There's nothing I can really complain about ever in this movie. I gotta say, though, I have one standout in my personal opinion who was the best in here, and that was probably Jason Momoa's Duncan Idaho. He was freaking amazing. I just gotta say that right now. I did not think he was gonna be that great, honestly, because I didn't think they were gonna use Duncan that much in this movie. But they I guess Jason Momoa knew what the hell he was doing, right? He must have been a fan of the books or something. But you could definitely tell he played that part perfectly, right? Nothing you could ever complain about for him. I gotta say, though, another one I thought was really good was Gurney Halleck by Josh Brolin, right? Yeah, he was great as him. Nothing I could complain about there. I mean, him and Thurfer Hawat weren't really in there too much, I gotta say, though. Those two were they were there, but it makes sense they'll probably grow in the next film, I guess, in part two. Even if it's a 2.5-hour movie, I gotta say, I feel like there's a lot of things, that are kind of missing, I want to say, a little bit, right? And honestly, the book does a little bit things better, obviously. It's gonna be hard to even do the book, obviously, because you have internal monologue going on. And here, there's no internal monologue whatsoever. But that's my personal opinion there. And then I also want to say that Stilgar was there. He wasn't too bad of a character, even though we barely saw him for I want to say he's been on the screen for 5 minutes or whatever. But he wasn't really prominent as I thought he was going to be. I thought we were going to see a little bit more of the ending scene. I want to get into the whole thing yet. But this does have spoilers. You'll see that in the title. But I mean, it's just, we didn't really get to see a little bit too much of Stilgar because he's really cool, especially in the later books as well. I don't know if they're ever going to do those ones, but he definitely becomes a prominent character that I think I would say is one of my favorites. But also, I don't want to skip out Oscar Isaac's character. He was pretty good as well as what's called the Duke Leto. Nothing I can really complain about there. Perfect casting. Also, I want to talk about Rebecca Ferguson's character, which was Lady Jessica, which is probably probably my third favorite character in this film, because we didn't really get too much of certain characters, but she was perfect. I mean, I'm glad they actually used her a lot, because in the book, honestly, she's very prominent, but I don't feel like she was utilized as much in the book as much. Because I gotta say, she's probably one of my favorite characters throughout the whole series. And there's nothing I can really complain about there. She did it top notch, like everybody else. But in this whole movie, let's get off the casting, because I don't want to stay on that too long. But I just want to say everybody did a great job. The Baron, he was great. Batista was in there, which is really cool. I didn't really think he was actually going to be in there a little bit too much, I'm glad that, they didn't show the Harkonnens too much, because I want to see them in the next film, how dominant they are, because they were great antagonists in here, but I want to see them in the next one a little bit more prominent. But, yeah, I think that was really good there. I think the special effects in here are the best thing ever throughout the whole movie. I mean, it's kind of I don't want to judge it to, Avatar, right, or compare it to Avatar is the word I'm looking for. I don't want to compare it to Avatar, but I gotta say, it's probably the best movie I've seen in the last few years. Honestly, hands down. Also, I want to talk about the soundtrack. I know I'm going all over the place and I'm talking very fast. I do apologize. I'm just very excited to talk about this. But the soundtrack in here, I really liked, but it does feel forced at times. I saw a lot of people talking about that as well. The soundtrack is obviously one of the best things in any movie, right? In this movie, it was great. And you could feel, I mean, they try to force the emotions a little bit with the soundtrack. And I'm just I don't know. It just feels like it's a little too much at this point. Because at times it's just soundtrack. It's all right, do we really need this much music going on here and here and here? I have no problem with that through any movie, but it just felt a little bit too much at times. And then sometimes I noticed, obviously, it's an IMAX and everything like that was going on, but I feel like certain parts of the movie were just way too goddamn loud. And then you heard whispers. I'm what the hell is going on? I don't know. That was another little complaint I want to talk about. I don't know what was going on there with the sound. I don't know. The sound design was great though. I'm gonna say that, but I felt like some scenes were way too damn loud, and then the other scenes were just way too quiet. So I don't know. It was kind of weird how that was set up, but it's nothing that's gonna ruin the movie for anybody. But that's just a little weird complaint I had. I don't know. It seemed very odd, right? But you could obviously tell from the director. I don't know how to say his name. I don't want to say butcher it basically. Even though I took French for 2 years, it's pretty sad. But honestly, he was amazing. You obviously could tell that he has a passion for the movies. He read the books. So, I mean, it's going to be a good 2 movies if they actually do the rest, right? Part 2 and then Dune Messiah, and supposedly we're going to a TV show. I'm really hoping that this movie does well in the theaters. They said they wanted to do well on HBO Max, and they'll think about it, basically, Warner Brothers said. So I'm really hoping this movie does well. I mean, it'll be out in, till theaters till, like, November or something, maybe December, but I'm really hoping everybody goes to see this, right? Now, I only watched it on HBO Max. It's easier for me, but it's just, I really hope it does well later on. Nothing I can really complain about. He has the passion, so I'm hoping that we get at least part 2 and then Dune Messiah. Because Dune Messiah is probably one of my favorites, even though it's the shortest book out of the series. But that's all I really want to say there. Okay, and then there's like this one part of the movie where I had like basically 2 questions going on. And that's basically like when we see some of those vision scenes with Paul, right? Why do we see Chani killing him in a way? Or Chani, I'm sorry, it's Chani. I know I said that wrong. But why do we see like Chani with like a sword stabbing him at the one part? I don't remember that being in the book at all. And that was like my main question. Like, wait, I don't remember this being happening throughout the book. I was like, I really don't remember this scene. I was like, unless that's a new added scene, I guess, maybe to show a little bit more of Chani, but I'm not really too sure with that one. And then Jamis and Paul teaming up, like, what was that about? Like, that was never in the book, so that's another thing they added. And it felt really strange. It's like, can Paul see other people's, I don't want to say life or anything, but it just seemed kind of weird how they added that. Maybe that's another timeline where he could see multiple timelines throughout his future or something like that. Now, that'd be really cool, because the book really didn't express that, I guess, at all. Like, Frank Herbert never really wrote about anything like that. I always wanted Paul in the book that has something like that, because I thought that'd be really badass, right? Where he could see other people's like dreams and everything like that. But we do know he can't see other people's dreams because he says it to Leah Kynes. Leah Kynes, he says it to. And he says he saw her dreams, and I was like, okay, so maybe that's something new. Because I don't remember Paul ever saying that to Dr. Leah Kynes in the book. So that's something new, I believe, because I really don't remember that scene. But it would be really cool, like I said before, of like Paul could see other people's dreams and whatnot, but we'll see how that goes, honestly. I'm hoping that maybe in part 2 it'll be a little bit more expanded, so that'll be really interesting to see in part 2 if it does get, approved. I'm really hoping it does, because there's a lot of things in the part 2 that are going to be awesome, but that was like my main little questions there, like him and Jamis, like training, I don't know. It just seemed really odd that even happened. So, questions there, right? So, those are my little nitpicks to end the video. And they're not, like, too detrimental to the storyline or anything like that. Except maybe one thing that really bothered me more than anything was Dr. Yu. I don't know how to say his name. Dr. Yui, I'm not sure. A lot of people are saying it differently, so I haven't heard the correct term yet for his name, right? Or the correct pronunciation. But it seemed really weird with his character. Like, he was very underdeveloped, in my personal opinion. He's the only character I could really complain about more than anything. Because in the book, when they're traveling over to Arrakis, that's the main part, how you kind of learn of his betrayal more than anything else. Because he says stuff about his like wife and everything that he tells Paul on his way over there, and obviously the internal monologue. So it seems kind of strange, right? That even happened or something. I don't think he said it to Paul, but I think he said it in the internal monologue. So I'm probably wrong on that. It's been a while since I read the book. I'm sorry about that, but it just seems really strange, right, that they cut that out, especially the dinner scene. That's another scene they really cut out, and I was like, was that a smart decision to cut out? Because I was like, I felt that it really developed a lot of characters in that scene, but I could be totally wrong. And then there's the final scene they also cut out was the betrayal storyline, or I shouldn't even say scene. They cut out the betrayal storyline where they believe it's Lady Jessica is the one, and they're going to put her under watch, basically. They cut that out entirely, so it seemed a little strange, right, that they cut certain things out. Like, I have no problem cutting out the betrayal storyline, but I think Dr. Yu, I'm not sure how to say, or Yue, I think his storyline should have stayed in. It would have made sense instead of being rushed with him, because his felt a little too rushed, in my personal opinion, now of anybody else. The dinner scene, I think that was very detrimental to the storyline, just a little bit. I feel like that would have helped develop a little bit more to the characters. Sure, the movie could have been like maybe 2 hours and 45 minutes long, maybe another 10 minutes or so. Nothing too crazy, I would say. Then I would have to say the Jamis fight. That felt way too fast, honestly, more than anything else. It was just way too quick. And I was just like, all right. I was like, I understand like why they're trying to do that. They're trying to end a movie so they don't go over other time limit. Because the movie runs around, I want to say 2 hours and 27 minutes it was just about. But I don't know. The Jamis fight just felt very rushed. Chani didn't tell him about him switching his hands in a fight. That's another thing. He only switched his hand, I think, once in the fight, if I noticed. But I know he does punch with his left hand, but maybe I missed that scene. I don't know. Maybe I didn't hear her say it. Like, hey, he switches his hands when he fights. Like, he'll throw the knife there or whatever. But that's another thing they really cut out. Because I don't know. Maybe I'm just, forgetting something. But I remember reading the book that he switched his hands when he was fighting. And then that's how Paul basically killed him, even though he told him to yield. Also, like another thing I want to say is that it felt a little too cluttered at time. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there was no time for breathing room. There was like no time, to let things settle down. Even though the pacing, I would say, was probably the biggest thing throughout the whole film was probably just the pacing issues. But that's really it for me. Like, there's nothing else I could really complain about. I thought the movie was top notch. It was great. I mean, if you asked me to rate it, like, hey, if you rated it to go see the movie, and if you're a fan of the books, what would you say? I was like, yeah, I would probably say go see the movie. It's pretty good. I'd say it's a 9 out of 10. Nothing I can really complain about. Just those little things, that bother me with the Doctor Who scene getting cut out. I was like, that kind of, even though it's like internal monologue, I'm like, But I think that's really it. Other than that, I really did enjoy it. I mean, I really hope to see part 2 and definitely Dune Messiah to finish up the trilogy he wants to do. I think Dune Messiah is probably like one of my favorites, honestly, throughout the whole film with God Emperor of Dune. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention that the what's it called scene was awesome as well, running from the sandworm. I also like that scene a lot. There's nothing I can complain about more than anything else. I just felt like, oh, that's another thing I almost forgot to mention as well. Is like when they're sitting there in the tent, right? That's another thing they changed. I didn't even think about that. I don't want to spoil the book, but you know what? I'm just gonna do it anyway. I'm sorry. So leave now if you want to get off this video. But he mentions that his mother's pregnant, right? But that's a little bit later on when they're in a tent when he cries over his father's death, and now is another thing they kind of cut out as well. They kind of said it early on in the story when he sees these dreams. It's like, I know you're pregnant. He doesn't say, I know you're pregnant with my sister. So that's another thing they really changed and cut out. I forgot about that. So I wonder if we're going to see his sister in the next one, Allah. I don't know how to say her name correctly. I know a lot of people say things differently, so I'm going to say Allah. So I'm not sure if we're going to see her in the next one. I mean, we kind of have to, right, for Dune Part 2? But other than that, what did you think of the film when you first saw it? I mean, honestly, I loved it. Those are some of my little nitpicks. I mean, other than anything, the cast was great. Special effects amazing. Soundtrack was pretty good, but felt a little forced at times, The Harkonnens were great antagonists throughout the film, I thought, even though they were there, but they weren't there too much. I felt they were pretty good to have as antagonists more than anything else, right? But that's really much it. I want to know what's going to go on with the Chani storyline in the next one, right? Because why was she stabbing Paul in a dream? I don't remember that ever happening in the book. And other than that, thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. And yeah, peace.